In Greek myths, a lot of people get Hades and the actual god of death mixed up. Hades is the boss of the underworld, so death is part of his job, but the real deal is Thanatos. Thanatos is this ancient god, one of the first ones ever. His mom is Nyx, the night, and his dad is Erebus, who's all about darkness. These early gods are more like big ideas than actual people you could meet. Thanatos is the idea of death in a nutshell, but he's kind of special. Unlike others, you can spot him in some old Greek art. He looks like a guy wearing a dark winged cloak, and sometimes he's got a scythe, kind of like the Grim Reaper we talk about today. You might think he's some scary bad guy like a spooky fallen angel. Now, when gods are linked to death, people usually think they're bad news. Death freaks us out because it's going to happen no matter what, and that's why these death-related gods get a bad rap. But Thanatos and most of these death gods aren't really evil. Thanatos is actually known for being peaceful in how he handles death. He's got this gentle way about him, just like his brother Hypnos, who's the god of sleep. Thanatos has these sisters, the Keres, and they're the total opposite. They're all about violence and sickness, really scary stuff. Thanatos has other siblings too, and they're pretty intense. Eris, who's all about conflict. Nemesis, who dishes out payback. Apate, who's into tricking people. And Charon, the guy who ferries souls in the underworld. Thanatos, the god of death in Greek mythology, was known for doing his job without playing favorites, just like Hades. He didn't care who you were. Once your time was up, that was it. No bargaining, no exceptions. But the cool thing about Thanatos was that even though he was firm about his job, he wasn't cruel. His way of bringing death was quick and didn't hurt. Now, even though death is something nobody can escape, there were a few clever folks who managed to dodge Thanatos for a while. One of these guys was King Sisyphus. He was famous for being super sneaky, but he made the gods mad, especially Zeus, who decided it was time for Sisyphus to go to the underworld. So, Zeus sent Thanatos to chain up Sisyphus and bring him down there. When they got there, Sisyphus pulled a fast one. He asked Thanatos to show him how the chains worked. Thanatos, who wasn't mean or anything, agreed to show him. But then, bam! Sisyphus turned the tables and trapped Thanatos instead. With Thanatos stuck, nobody on Earth could die, which was a problem, especially for Ares, the god of war. What's the point of fighting if nobody can die, right? Ares wasn't having it. He went down to the underworld, freed Thanatos, and made sure Sisyphus got what he deserved. This whole thing shows us that Thanatos wasn't evil at all. He even had a soft spot, letting Sisyphus trick him. This could be seen as Thanatos being either really kind or a bit naive. There was another time when Thanatos had a run-in with a hero. This time it was Heracles. Heracles was supposed to bring a princess named Alcestis to the underworld. Heracles wasn't cool with that and ended up fighting with Thanatos, eventually scaring him off. Long story short, the whole mess started with a golden apple. Yep, you heard that right. During the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, Eris, the goddess of strife, wasn't invited, and she was pretty ticked off about it. So she tossed a golden apple into the party with "For the fairest" written on it. This led to a beauty contest among the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Paris, a prince of Troy, was chosen to judge. Each goddess tried to bribe him, but Aphrodite played her trump card. She promised Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen, who was already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta. Paris snatched Helen, which didn't sit well with the Greeks, especially Menelaus. The Greeks, led by Menelaus and his brother Agamemnon, rallied an army that included big names like Achilles and Odysseus and set sail for Troy. This was no small-time scuffle. It was an all-out war that dragged on for a decade. The Greeks tried everything, from direct assaults to sneaky tricks, but Troy was a tough nut to crack. Now, about those heroes. Achilles was the Greek MVP, a warrior with mad skills but also a bit of a temper. He had a falling out with Agamemnon over a woman named Briseis and sulked in his tent, refusing to fight. Meanwhile, Hector, a Trojan prince and a top-notch hero himself, was keeping the Greeks at bay. Things got personal when Patroclus, Achilles' close friend, or maybe more, got killed by Hector. Achilles went ballistic and killed Hector, dragging his body around. Not cool, but hey, ancient times. The war took a turn with the famous Trojan horse trick, thanks to Odysseus. The Greeks pretended to leave, leaving behind a giant wooden horse as a gift. The Trojans, thinking they'd won, brought the horse inside their walls. Bad move. Greek soldiers were hiding inside the horse, and at night they opened the gates for their army. Troy was sacked, ending the war. But it wasn't all high fives and victory laps for the Greeks. The gods were pretty upset about how things went down, especially with how Achilles treated Hector's body and the whole sneaky horse business. Many Greek heroes had rough journeys back home. For instance, Odysseus took another 10 years to get back to Ithaca, facing all sorts of crazy challenges. In the old Greek myths, the way people saw the afterlife, especially the Elysian Fields, changed a lot. These fields became a cool place that more than just heroes or god favorites could get to. This new view also changed how people saw Thanatos, the death god. At first, Elysium was like the best dream place ever. Homer, a famous old writer, said it was a land with no bad weather, just nice sea breezes. Hesiod, another writer, called it the Isles of the Blessed, where happy heroes hung out far from the gods in a place with super sweet fruits. Pindar, who wrote later, said Elysium was where good people lived without tears, hard work, and surrounded by gold flowers. People there were super happy, doing fun stuff like music, sports, and just chilling in beautiful fields with lots of green stuff, rivers, and no worries at all. So, Elysium was like this super awesome paradise. Think of the best vacation spot you can imagine. That's Elysium. It was so pretty, with lush green meadows, rivers that flowed like music, and so many flowers and trees you'd think you were in a giant garden. The sun was always shining and people there were just chilling out, playing music, doing sports, and having a great time. It was the ultimate happy place with no sadness or worries. Originally, Elysium was like an exclusive club. Only the coolest heroes and people who were tight with the gods could get in. But as time went by, the Greeks started thinking, hey, why not let other good folks in too? So they decided even regular good people could end up there if they lived nice, kind lives. And there was this idea that if you were really, really good and did it 3 times over, like living 3 good lives, you could get into the super VIP part of Elysium and not have to come back to life again. You could just relax in eternal chill mode. Thanatos started off as a pretty serious, kinda scary dude. But as people's ideas about death changed, so did Thanatos. He got a bit of a makeover and started looking younger and friendlier. Think of a guy who went from being a scary movie villain to the handsome hero. This change was part of the Greeks starting to see death in a less frightening way. Instead of being all doom and gloom, death was more like a peaceful sleep or a gentle journey to a better place. Some stories even showed Thanatos as a cute sleeping baby, which is way different from the scary image he had before. Thanatos wasn't always his own guy. He might have started as a part of Hermes, the messenger god who was also the guide for souls going to the afterlife. Hermes was a bit of a prankster, but Thanatos showed the more serious side of guiding souls. Over time, the Greeks gave these gods more specific jobs, and Thanatos became the main guy for the whole death and guiding souls thing. These gods often reflect how a culture views death and the afterlife, and boy, are there some interesting ones. First up, let's talk about Anubis from ancient Egyptian mythology. Anubis is the one with the jackal's head, super famous for his role in mummification and guiding souls in the afterlife. Egyptians thought highly of him, as he was all about ensuring a fair judgment for the deceased and assisting in their resurrection. He's kinda like the ultimate guide for souls making their way to the afterlife. Next, we've got Kali from Hindu mythology. Kali is this fierce warrior goddess, known for her terrifying appearance. Imagine a necklace of heads and a skirt of arms. Despite looking pretty intense, Kali actually used her violent nature to protect innocents and the world from demons. She's a complex figure, representing both destruction and protection. Moving over to the Mayan mythology, there's Apuk. Unlike Anubis, Apuk wasn't known for being particularly fair. He was the bad guy of death gods, often associated with cruelty and blamed for all sorts of nasty things like disease and suffering. In Aztec mythology, Mictlantecutli is the god of death. He's known for his role in trying to stop the creation of humans, and believed that after death, everyone descended into the underworld. The Aztecs didn't have a concept of a heavenly afterlife. It was all about this underworld journey. Then there's Hel from Norse mythology. She's the daughter of Loki and rules over Helheim, the Norse realm of the dead. Hel's described as half black, half white, which is a pretty cool representation of the life-death dichotomy. In Norse beliefs, honorable warriors went to Valhalla, but those who died dishonorably wound up in Hel's domain. Lastly, let's mention Ereshkigal from Mesopotamian mythology. She's the ruler of the underworld and had a major temple dedicated to her in the ancient city of Kutha. Ereshkigal's role was quite significant, presiding over the realm of the dead alongside her husband Nergal. Did you enjoy diving into the fascinating evolution of Greek mythology and the afterlife? If so, hit the like button and subscribe for more intriguing journeys into ancient myths and legends. Now here's a question to ponder. If you could visit the Elysian Fields for a day, what would you do there? Share your thoughts in the comments.